The day the house chose sides. The Whitman house was made of glass and good intentions, both delicate, both easy to shatter. Morning light slid across the marble like a silent apology for the arguments that lived in the corners. On the far wall, a black and white photograph of the family looked perfect. Richard Whitman, the man who bought half the skyline, Clara, poised in white, and little Emma, a bow in her hair, smiling because someone behind the camera had jingled a silver bracelet. Real life didn't jingle. "Don't you dare touch her like you're her mother," Clara hissed, voice tightening with each word. The pearl of her earring quivered, her finger stabbed the air at the woman in the blue maid's dress. Maria didn't flinch, she only pulled the little girl closer. Emma's cheek pressed into Maria's apron, small hands fisted where the fabric met the seam. Yellow cleaning gloves were still on Maria's hands, bright against the child's pink sweater, as if kindness itself had a color. "I'm not her mother," Maria said gently. "I'm just making sure she's okay. What she needs is discipline," Clara shot back. "Not coddling. Not whatever this is." Her gaze flicked toward the tall figure by the windows. Richard. He hadn't spoken, not yet. Richard Whitman stood with his back half turned, looking out over the lawn as if the glass could explain his own home to him. When he finally turned, his tie was straight, his face calm. But his eyes had rain in them. "Enough," he said. The word stilled the room but didn't fix it. Nothing that simple could. Emma's voice came as a whisper made brave by love. "I wasn't scared because of Maria." Clara's mouth fell open. "Excuse me." Emma's grip tightened around Maria. "I was scared because you were yelling." The silence afterward felt like stepping off a curb and finding no street beneath your feet. Clara's face drained. Then color flooded back, hot and startling. Her heels clicked once against the marble as if anger itself wore stilettos. "Out," she said to Maria, voice trembling with control. "Take your kindness and go back to the staff corridor. Right now." Maria's throat worked. "Yes, ma'am." But she didn't move. She bent instead, lowering her voice until it was level with Emma's ear. "Would you like the blue blanket for quiet time?" The little girl nodded, chin trembling. "Okay. 2 minutes," Maria promised softly, eyes never leaving Clara's. Clara's laugh was small and sharp. 2 minutes. This is exactly the problem. Servants giving orders. Richard's voice cut through again, low but final. "Clara." She stopped. Everyone did when he used that tone. He was the kind of man who only raised his voice when it mattered, which made people listen to the quiet. Maria started for the hallway with Emma, but Clara's hand snapped out, catching Maria's sleeve. It was not a violent grip, just a controlling one, the kind that bruises a person's day instead of their skin. Maria gently freed herself, turned, and for the first time all morning looked Clara in the eyes. With respect, she said, "She trusts me right now. Please let me keep my promise." For a heartbeat, Clara's expression flickered. Surprise, then something like fear, then fury swallowing it whole. She stepped back. Maria kept moving. They disappeared down the hall. A blue dress and a pink sweater, a set of yellow gloves, a soft whisper. "Breathe in, breathe out, like we practiced, little star." When they turned the corner, the house exhaled. Clara faced Richard. "You let this continue, and she'll have that woman wrapped around Emma's neck like a collar." Richard removed his glasses and cleaned them with unnecessary precision. "She saved Emma from a panic attack last week," he said quietly. "You were at the charity brunch." "I was raising money for children like her," Clara snapped. And I will not be spoken to like the villain in our own home. Richard slid the glasses back on. Then stop auditioning for the part. Clara recoiled as if he'd slapped her. She rallied fast. If you think I'm going to stand here and be humiliated. You're not, he said. You're going to stand here and decide whether you want to be a parent or a brand. That did it. She grabbed her bag, tossed a look over her shoulder capable of splintering glass, and left the room trailing a perfume that smelled like white flowers and exit strategies. Only then did Richard sink onto the edge of the sofa, elbows on knees, eyes fixed on a wrinkle in the rug that had survived 3 housekeepers and 1 marriage. He rubbed his thumb and forefinger together, an old nervous habit. Somewhere in the house, a child drew a breath, and a woman taught her how to let it go. The blue blanket lived in a wicker basket under the reading nook, Maria's idea. She'd told maintenance to mount the curtain rod lower and had stitched tiny silver stars into one corner of the blanket where only Emma would know to look. Small secrets make big safety. Can I have the story? Emma asked, the request shy, ritual. Of the brave tree, Maria said. Emma nodded. Once there was a tree that grew where the wind was mean, Maria began, settling them both on the rug, the blanket across their laps. Every day the wind tried to push the tree down, and every day the tree said, not today. What did the tree do? Emma asked, the line she always asked, the point that always mattered. It grew roots, Maria said, smiling. Deep, deep roots, and the wind could only take the leaves. Emma's breathing lengthened, softened. The panic slid back from the edge of her little chest. After a while she said, as Miss Clara Wind. Maria hesitated. She could have said no. She could have said sometimes. Instead she said the only thing that had never broken a child's trust. Sometimes grown-ups don't know how loud they sound, she answered carefully. But your heart knows who's safe. Emma looked up at her. You are. Maria smoothed a strand of hair that had escaped the child's ponytail. I am, she promised. Promises meant more when you didn't make many. A soft knock. Richard stood at the threshold, not stepping inside the circle of quiet as if it might break under his shoes. May I? He asked. Emma looked to Maria for permission without realizing it. Maria nodded. The man who owned the house entered the space the maid had built and sat cross-legged on a rug that cost more than his first car. How's our brave tree? He asked. Rooting, Emma said solemnly. Something like pride crossed his face. Good. He glanced at Maria then, a quick grateful thing. Thank you. She dipped her head. She did the work. When he left, Emma whispered, he's trying. He is, Maria agreed. Are you? The question caught Maria. At what, little star? At staying, Emma said. Not pleading. Just honest. Maria swallowed. I'm trying very hard. Emma relaxed. Promises given. For now. In the kitchen, sunlight struck steel and turned it kind. Maria washed her gloves, hung them to dry, and began prepping lunch the way Emma would actually eat it. Carrot sticks cut into little hearts, grilled chicken with honey, rice shaped into a bear's face. She placed the plate on a tray with the sky blue cup and a napkin folded like a sail. You'll spoil her, Clara said from the doorway. Maria hadn't heard her come in. She didn't jump. I'll feed her, she said. She needs to learn to eat real food, not kindergarten sculpture. She'll eat it if it's friendly, Maria said, soft but firm. Friendly food for when the day hasn't been. Clara crossed her arms. The white dress did nothing to soften her. You know what I see when I look at you. A woman who doesn't know her place. Maria kept her eyes on the tray. My place is wherever the child is afraid. And if I tell you your place is the curb, then I'll hold her hand until the car seat is buckled, Maria said, turning with the tray. And I'll leave when she stops looking for me. For a second, something like admiration flickered across Clara's face. Someone recognizing the courage of a soldier on the wrong side of the war. Then she stepped aside with a chilly smile. We'll see. Emma ate almost all the hearts and half the bear. After lunch, while the child traced stars along the blue blanket with the tip of her finger, Maria cleaned the living room. She knew the route by muscle memory. Fluff the pillows twice, angle the vase so the lilies faced the doorway, wipe the smudges from the glass coffee table where everyone idly touched their reflections. She straightened the family photograph. The bow on Emma's head in that picture was crooked, same as in life, only the frame pretended otherwise. Maria, she turned. Richard stood with a manila folder. Walk with me. They stepped onto the back terrace where the pool wore a perfect mirror of the sky. He held the folder like it weighed something heavier than paper. Clara thinks you're undermining her, he said. Clara thinks gravity undermines her if it doesn't bend when she leans, Maria replied before she could recall herself. Heat flared in her cheeks. I'm sorry, sir. A huff of surprise escaped him, almost a laugh. It faded quickly. I don't want a civil war. I want a house my daughter can breathe in. Maria studied the neatly clipped hedges. Then there has to be a room she can run to where no one follows but who she chooses. Is that you? He asked. It is today, she said, meeting his eyes. It might be you tomorrow. That would be good. He looked away first. I didn't hire you to raise my family. I know, she said. But someone has to when the day gets loud. He nodded, once, like a man acknowledging a debt he couldn't pay with money. If Clara asks you to leave the room, he said, you may. But if Emma asks you to stay, stay. Even if Clara is watching. Maria asked. Especially then, he answered. News travels in big houses the way it does in small towns. Fast, wrong, and wearing the right shoes. By late afternoon, the staff knew there'd been a scene. By early evening, they'd chosen who they were afraid of. Most picked Clara. A few picked Maria. Fear votes louder, but loyalty lasts longer. At bedtime, Emma wanted the lullaby that wasn't a song. Maria sat on the rug, elbows on the edge of the mattress, and told the brave tree story again, but slower, like prayers spoken by people who weren't sure anyone was listening. Will you be here in the morning? Emma asked, the line that always came last, like credits after the movie. Yes, Maria said, and tasted the promise like a coin under her tongue. Small, heavy, full of a country's worth. When the child slept, Maria stood a long time and watched her breathe. She'd done this for her kid sister years ago, in a room that smelled like boiled potatoes and rain. Back then, watching breathing had felt like keeping someone alive by the force of your wanting. It hadn't worked. Nothing had. The grave had been small, the sky very large, and Maria had left home carrying a vow that didn't fit in her suitcase. If I ever find a child who is afraid, I will be the person who stays. She turned off the lamp. The hallway light cooled at her feet like something holy. Maria's room should have felt safe. 4 steps wide, 7 steps long, a bed shoved against one wall, a shelf with a chipped mug and 2 paperbacks, a small framed photo of her mother smiling even though one of her teeth was missing. Safety is not about square footage. It's about who knows where you sleep. She sat on the bed and finally let her day fall off her shoulders piece by piece. The gloves, the apron, the pins from her hair. A quiet knock. "Come in," she said, expecting housekeeping. It was Emma, blanket dragging, one sock on, one sock lost, stuffed bare under her arm like a bodyguard. "My walls are loud," Emma whispered. Sometimes metaphors told the truth better than facts. "Come here," Maria said, lifting the blanket. The little girl climbed up, small and warm, heart thudding like a bird against a windowpane. Maria didn't sing. She breathed. In for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. A language the nervous system understood when words made everything worse. Emma's breathing matched hers by the 3rd round. By the 6th, the tension melted like ice left on a sunny step. By the 10th, the house felt like it might choose peace if someone taught it how. "Are you sad?" Emma asked into the dark. "A little," Maria admitted. "Because Miss Clara yelled. Because I don't like it when people I care about are scared," Maria said. "Do you care about me?" The question was small and enormous. "With my whole heart," Maria said, not stumbling over it, not softening it. Truths that save children don't need cushions. Emma tucked her head beneath Maria's chin. "Then I'm not scared." And Maria, who had learned long ago that adults often lie to themselves, let the child teach her something grown-ups forget. Sometimes safety isn't a place, it's a person. The doorframe filled with a shadow. Richard. He didn't step in. He didn't do anything reckless like cry. He leaned his shoulder to the jamb and watched the two people who had remembered how to be a family before he figured out what one was. "Is she okay?" he asked. "She will be," Maria said. "Will you?" Maria didn't answer. He didn't press. He looked instead at the tiny room with its thrift store lamp and perfect peace and felt something break in him that should have broken years ago. "Good night," he said, and meant thank you. "Good night," Maria replied, and meant you're welcome. Clara slept badly in the big bed, which is one of the problems with big beds. There's too much room for the ghosts of better versions of ourselves. Around 2 a.m., she got up and wandered the hallways in her expensive silence, pausing outside the small door where the blue blanket turned one bed into 2 hearts breathing in time. She reached for the handle, then didn't. She stood there torn between the person she was and the person she'd promised the world to be. People think jealousy is about wanting what someone else has. Often it is about fear. Fear that a child can tell the difference between proximity and love. Clara finally walked away, telling herself a story that tasted better than the truth. This is manipulation. The maid is cunning. The child is naive. My husband is blind. Stories, like houses, can be made of glass if you never plan to throw stones. Morning would come hard. It always does after a night that argues with itself. At 7, the kitchen woke like a stage crew. The cook cracked eggs with the confidence of a woman who'd buried 2 husbands and outlived 3 dogs. The espresso machine hissed like a cat that had learned to boil. Maria prepped Emma's backpack. Inhaler, just in case. A note tucked in the front pocket. If the day gets loud, touch your blue star and count your breaths. I'm proud of you. Clara entered in tennis whites that said I try and I win in equal fonts. I'll take Emma to school, she announced. Richard appeared, loosening his tie. Since when did he loosen ties? In the morning. I will, he said. Clara's smile was almost gracious. Together, then. Emma came in with mismatched socks on purpose and hugged Maria like the day depended on it. "Promise?" she asked. "No context. All content." "I'll be here after school," Maria said. "We'll make friendly food." "Bear rice?" Emma asked. "Bear rice," Maria promised. Clara watched the exchange the way a person watches a magician, suspicious of the trick, resentful of the wonder. She took Emma's hand, a little too firmly, and the trio left in a silence made of eggshells. Maria stood very still. She finished cleaning the already clean counter, found a tiny smear no one else would see, erased it with a single swipe. Some messes take more than soap. She reached for her phone on the shelf above the spices and called her mother. The old woman answered on the second ring, breathy, cheerful, the sound of a window open to morning. "Mi Corazon," her mother said. "How is the big house?" "Loud," Maria answered, smiling despite herself. "And the little girl?" "Braver than the wind." "And you?" Maria paused, trying to grow roots. "Ah," her mother said, pleased. "Then let the wind be loud." They spoke of medicine and money without saying the words. They traded jokes and promised soups. They hung up with a blessing that reached across miles like hands finding each other in the dark. Dash dash dash. The day stretched obediently. Maria laundered courage out of pillowcases, straightened mirrors that lied a little less when they were square, and set the reading nook for the afternoon treaty between a child and her fears. Around 3, the house shifted. Cars in the drive, voices at the door. Emma burst in first, hair a little wild, socks fully committed to being different. "We did shapes," she announced. "Triangles are bossy. Circles are patient," Maria returned. "And squares. Tell the truth," Maria said, and Emma laughed into her waist like laughter had a home. Clara followed with a brittle smile. Richard trailed, phone in hand, a storm gathering behind his eyes. Maria felt it before it thundered. "Maria," Clara said sweetly enough to rot a tooth. "My tennis friend mentioned a lovely boarding school upstate. Small classes. Strong structure. Emma needs structure, don't you think?" Emma went still, the way wild animals do when they hear the snap of a twig. "Emma needs safety," Maria said. "Structure is only useful if the heart is steady." Richard put his phone down. "We're not sending her away," he said, the first time he'd said we and meant not you. Clara's eyes flashed. "I'm trying to fix this family," she said. "You're all determined to make me the villain." "No," Maria said quietly. "You're determined to make fear a teacher." The room tilted. Clara stepped closer, voice dropping. "This is what I warned you about, Richard. She thinks she's one of us." Maria didn't move. "I think she's one of mine." Clara blinked. "Who?" "Emma," Maria said simply. "The house chose sides today. It chose the person who stays." "Get out," Clara whispered, not to Maria, oddly, to the feeling in the room she couldn't control. Then louder. "Get out of my sight." Maria didn't argue. She looked at Emma. "Bear rice." Emma nodded, eyes bright with tears she didn't let fall. "Brave tree," Maria mouthed. The child breathed in, held, out, counted the beats, stayed. Richard cleared his throat. "Maria, please make dinner for Emma in the kitchen tonight," he said, giving Clara the gift of the illusion of power. Then, to Clara, "You and I will talk in my office." He left. She followed, brittle and blazing. The door closed down the hall with the softest of clicks. Funny how softly doors close on loud endings. Maria and Emma stood in the kitchen where the light always tried to make things better. She washed rice. Emma set the plates. The bare face came out lopsided and perfect. At the table, Emma reached across and slid her small hand into Maria's. "Are you my blue star?" she asked. "I don't know," Maria said. "But I'll hold it with you until you find out." They ate in a peace that felt borrowed from a kinder world. When the plates were clean and the counters wiped, when homework was a tower of careful letters and gentle numbers, Maria walked Emma to her room, tucked her in, and stood watch over sleep the way sentries do over boarders. Later, in her own small room, Maria lay awake and listened to the house argue itself tired. She thought of wind and trees. She thought of how promises are the opposite of storms. Sometime close to midnight, the floorboard outside her door creaked. She knew the weight of that step now. Richard's voice came low through the wood. "Thank you," he said. Maria stared at the ceiling and let the words anchor where praise never had. "Good night, Mr. Whitman." His footsteps retreated. The house settled. Outside, a wind worried the hedges. Inside, roots, quiet and stubborn, went deeper. Morning would come. So would the next fight. But this was the day the house had chosen sides, and the side it chose was small and fierce and wrapped in a blue blanket stitched with secret silver stars. And sometimes, that is how families begin. Not with vows or photographs, but with a child who stops shaking because someone stayed. The mansion looked perfect from the outside, but perfection has cracks when you live inside it long enough. Days had passed since the confrontation in the living room, but the air in the house hadn't cleared. It carried whispers, cold glances, and silences heavy enough to suffocate. Clara wore her white dresses like armor. Richard hid behind his calm silence, and Maria carried on with quiet dignity, her eyes always scanning for Emma's needs before anyone else noticed. But something was changing. Something no one had dared to speak about. Emma's hidden struggle. It started one rainy afternoon. Maria was folding laundry in her small room when she heard quick, uneven footsteps in the hall. She rushed out and saw Emma clutching her chest, her face pale, her little breaths sharp and panicked. "Emma!" Maria dropped the clothes and ran, dropping to her knees. "Breathe with me, little star. In, hold, out." Emma tried but gasped harder. Panic rose in Maria's throat, but she didn't let it show. She scooped Emma into her arms, rushing toward the kitchen where she had kept an inhaler, just in case. She pressed it gently to Emma's lips. "1, 2, good girl. Again. That's it." Slowly, Emma's breathing steadied, her chest rising less violently, her eyes fluttering with relief. She collapsed against Maria's shoulder, exhausted. Maria rocked her gently, whispering, "I've got you. You're safe." When Clara arrived minutes later, she didn't ask how Emma was feeling. She asked instead, "What happened this time?" As if the child's suffering was a nuisance. Maria's jaw clenched, but she answered with respect. "She has asthma. She needs her inhaler regularly, and the doctor's instructions must be followed carefully." Clara waved her hand dismissively. "She's fine. Children exaggerate. Don't fill her head with weakness." Emma's small fingers tightened around Maria's apron, as if she could tell where truth lived and where denial hid. Richard's awakening. Richard came home late that evening. His tie was loosened, his steps heavy. Maria met him in the foyer, holding Emma's hand. "Sir," Maria began carefully, "Emma had another episode today. She needs more care." Richard stiffened. "Episode." Maria explained everything. The uneven breathing. The panic. The inhaler. The way Clara dismissed it. Richard's eyes darkened, a storm gathering behind his calm mask. He bent down, lifting Emma into his arms. Why didn't anyone tell me? Emma leaned her head against his chest. Because Mommy says I'm fine. Richard carried her upstairs silently, his jaw tight. Maria followed quietly, but at the doorway, she stopped, watching as Richard tucked his daughter into bed, brushing her hair back with tenderness that rarely surfaced in public. He kissed her forehead gently. "You're stronger than you know, my little star," he whispered, repeating Maria's words without realizing it. When he turned, his eyes lingered on Maria for a moment longer than usual. Gratitude, respect, something more, hidden beneath years of silence. Maria's flashback. That night, alone in her room, Maria stared at the cracked ceiling and let her past come flooding back. She remembered her little sister, Sophia, who had suffered from the same sickness. They had no money for inhalers then, no doctors who cared. Maria had sat at her sister's bedside every night, whispering the same breathing exercises she now taught Emma. But Sophia had slipped away one stormy night, her tiny chest unable to fight any longer. Maria had buried her sister with trembling hands, vowing that no child under her care would ever feel alone in fear again. That vow lived now in every breath she guided Emma through, every hug, every whispered word of comfort. Tears burned her eyes, but she let them fall silently. Clara's jealousy. The next morning at breakfast, Emma refused to sit beside Clara. She chose the seat next to Maria, giggling as Maria cut her pancakes into heart shapes. Richard noticed but said nothing. Clara, however, noticed everything. "You're turning her against me," Clara snapped later in the kitchen when Maria was alone. Maria paused, wiping the counter slowly. "I am doing no such thing. She just needs someone who listens." Clara stepped closer, her voice sharp. "You think kindness makes you a mother. It doesn't. Position does. And I have the position. You have nothing." Maria met her gaze for the first time without fear. "I have her trust. That is everything." Clara's hand twitched as if she wanted to slap her, but she stopped herself, knowing Richard would not forgive such a scandal. Instead, she leaned in, whispering like poison. "You will regret staying in this house." Emma's promise. That night, Emma snuck into Maria's room again. She climbed onto the bed, her teddy bear under her arm. "Don't ever leave me," she whispered, eyes wide with fear. Maria stroked her hair. "I won't, little star. Not unless you stop needing me." Emma shook her head firmly. "I'll always need you. Promise." Maria hugged her tightly. "Promise." From the hallway, Richard watched the scene quietly. The sight of his daughter finally smiling, safe in someone's arms, cut deep into his heart. He realized something he hadn't wanted to face. Clara wasn't the mother Emma needed. Maria was. And that truth was a secret no one dared say aloud. Not yet. The storm didn't break outside, it broke inside the Whitman mansion. The walls of glass and marble had seen arguments before, but this time, it wasn't just a quarrel. It was war. The trap. Clara had grown desperate. Emma was slipping further away from her every day, clinging more to Maria, and Richard's silence was no longer silence, it was distance. So Clara did what desperate people do. She set a trap. One evening, when Richard was still at work and Emma was playing quietly upstairs, Clara stormed into the living room holding a jewelry box. "My necklace," she cried. "It's gone." My grandmother's diamond. Stolen. The staff gathered in confusion. Clara's eyes burned as they landed on Maria. And I know exactly who took it. Maria froze. What? Clara stepped forward, voice like venom. You've been here long enough, pretending to be a saint, but I knew it was only a matter of time before the maid showed her true colors. The other servants murmured in shock. Maria's hands trembled. Mrs. Clara, I would never. But Clara cut her off. Search her room. Within minutes, 2 maids and a guard entered Maria's small quarters. And there, in the corner of her drawer, they pulled out a velvet pouch. Inside, the missing necklace. Gasps filled the room. Clara smiled triumphantly. Maria's knees almost gave out. Her lips parted in horror. I didn't take it. I don't know how. Clara raised her chin. Lies. You've been manipulating Emma, stealing her affection, and now you steal from me. Pack your things. You're finished here. Emma, who had wandered in halfway through the scene, burst into tears. No, Maria didn't do it. She never would. Clara grabbed Emma's arm roughly. Hush, child. You don't know what people like her are capable of. Richard's decision. At that very moment, the front door opened. Richard entered, his presence freezing the chaos. He looked at the scene, then at the trembling Maria, the crying Emma, and the smug Clara. What's going on? He demanded. Clara rushed forward. Richard, thank goodness you're home. Your little maid stole my necklace. We found it in her room. She's been fooling everyone, but now the truth is out. Richard's eyes narrowed. As that's so, Maria opened her mouth, but no words came out. The shame, the horror, it was too much. She could only shake her head desperately, her tears falling silently. Richard's gaze stayed on her for a long moment. Then, without a word, he walked past everyone, down the hall, into his study. The room was tense, everyone holding their breath. Minutes later, he returned. In his hand, he carried documents, bank statements, receipts, security footage from the house cameras. He laid them out on the table. The necklace was never stolen. Clara had it removed and hidden 2 days ago. I have proof she instructed the guard to place it in Maria's drawer. The room fell into stunned silence. Clara's face went white. That's ridiculous, she sputtered. But Richard's voice cut through her lies. No, what's ridiculous is that you thought you could destroy the one person who has been protecting my daughter better than you ever did. Clara's mouth opened, closed, but no words came. The child's voice. The silence was broken by Emma. She stepped forward, her small hands trembling, tears on her cheeks. She looked at Richard, then at Clara, then finally at Maria. With a voice that carried more weight than any adult's, she said, Maria is my real mom in my heart. The words echoed like thunder in the grand room. Everyone froze. Clara gasped, staggering back as though the child's honesty had struck her. Emma rushed into Maria's arms, sobbing. Please don't let them take her away. Please, Daddy, I need her. She's the only one who makes me feel safe. Maria held her tightly, tears streaming down her own face. She whispered, I'm not going anywhere, little star. Not as long as you need me. Richard's eyes filled with emotions he had kept buried for years. He stepped closer, his voice firm. You won't have to go anywhere, Maria. Not anymore. The fall of Clara. Clara tried one last time, her voice cracking. Richard, you can't let this woman replace me. I'm your wife. I'm the one who belongs here. Richard turned to her, his voice colder than winter. A wife who humiliates my daughter, who neglects her illness, who lies and schemes to hurt the only person keeping this family together, does not belong in this house. Clara's eyes widened. You're choosing her. A maid. Richard's jaw tightened. I'm choosing the truth. I'm choosing my daughter's happiness. And yes, I'm choosing the woman who has shown more loyalty, kindness, and love than you ever did. Clara's face crumbled. Without another word, she grabbed her purse, her heels clattering across the marble, and stormed out of the mansion. This time, her departure felt final. The new family. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't suffocating. It was freeing. Richard turned to Maria, who still clutched Emma. His voice softened. I owe you more than I can ever repay. You were never just a maid. You were the heart of this house, the mother my child needed, and the woman I was too blind to see. Maria shook her head, overwhelmed. I never wanted anything but to keep her safe. Emma looked up, smiling through her tears. Then stay with us forever. Maria kissed the child's forehead. Forever, my little star. Richard's gaze lingered, his chest heavy with unspoken words. But in that moment, actions spoke louder. He reached out, wrapping both Emma and Maria into his arms. For the first time, the mansion felt like home. Epilogue. The Whitman mansion no longer echoed with fear. Laughter filled the hallways. The blue blanket with silver stars stayed folded neatly on Emma's bed, and Maria's small room became unnecessary, because she was no longer a servant. She was family. And sometimes, family isn't defined by blood or position. It's defined by love. It's defined by who stays when everyone else walks away.